Hello and welcome to another Zelda Month video. This time, it's the age-old question. Which is better, Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask? Please be aware that this video is 100% biased and is my own opinions, not facts. So if you disagree, don't be alarmed. Please leave a comment down below telling me which game you prefer more. And with that being said, let's get right into this video. So starting us off, we have dungeons, temples, and bosses. So I'm going to start with the Majora's Mask side of things. Majora's Mask temples are not really the best in my opinion. There was the Woodfall Temple, which I honestly think is kind of fun just running through. But then there's Odwalla, who in theory is actually a really cool and interesting design and boss. He has a really cool concept behind him, but he's just really easy and goes down with no problem. Also, can we talk about his chant for a second? Like, what the fuck is he saying? What? What, dude? What are you trying to say? So the next temple that you run into is the Snow Peak Ruins, and this temple is just a fucking pain in the ass. If you miss one of those jumps as they go on, or you simply just fall down, it's like a solid 10 to 15 minutes of backtracking every time you fall, which I think is super annoying to me. And then the bosses, God, whatever the fuck you want to call him, I think he's super lame as well, and to be honest, all you do is chase him around a circle for like 10 minutes until he falls. Up next is the Great Bay Temple, and you know, this one's actually not too bad, but it can definitely be annoying and you can lose track of what you're doing pretty easily. And then there's George, or at least that's what I'm calling him. But can we also just talk about how fucking shitty the boss names are in this game too? Like, can there be a single boss name in this game that makes sense? But anyways, yeah, fuck George, he sucks too. I don't even need to explain why he sucks, we all know. And lastly, we get into the final temple, which is the Stone Tower Temple. And holy shit, this one is fucking cool as hell because it requires you to use all of your items and mask transformations on top of the fact that this temple fucking flips itself upside down. And bam, there's literally a part 2 to this bitch. 2 dungeons in 1. And the boss is Twin Mold. His fight is not actually a terrible fight. It's super epic when you become all big and ginormous and you can use the Giant's Mask for only this 10 minutes of the game. But when you run out of magic and you can't find any more, that part kind of sucks. On top of the fact that all you're really doing is just shooting an arrow at his tail the whole time or trying to slash him and run down against him. But then we have the final boss, Majora. This boss fight is super fucking cool and it's very weird at the same time. With 3 parts to it, it feels like a real final completed boss that is actually quite challenging. And with all the masks coming and attacking you all at once, it's very challenging and a really just epic final boss fight. This is really what games are looking to do in the future. So now onto Ocarina of Time's temples, bosses, and dungeons. So Ocarina of Time starts off the game with a pretty simplistic dungeon that teaches you the main mechanics of the game. On top of it, it ends the dungeon with a super cool boss, which is a giant fucking spider. And I am hella scared of big ass spiders, so this was very epic to me. Next up, we got the Dongo's Cavern. Yet again, another fun, simplistic dungeon. Not really super tricky at all, but also super fun and easy to go through, with another cool ass boss, which is a giant dragon type of thing. Super epic starting off the beginning of the game. And then we have the third dungeon in the game. I don't know what the fuck they were smoking when making this one, because this dungeon just straight sucks ass. With the lame boss anyways, you basically have like an escort mission through the entire dungeon that really sucks, and there's a lot of backtracking, and it's just seriously, it's awful. Honestly, in my opinion, the top 5 worst Zelda dungeons ever created. But I mean, that's okay, because the Forest Temple comes next, and oh boy, this temple is fucking amazing. Honestly, top 5 best Zelda dungeons of all time in my book. Super spooky atmosphere with super challenging and tricky puzzles. Can we talk about that eye that you had to shoot again to untwist the hallway? Such a smart idea for a puzzle, and it's a shame that that was the only time, and the only time that idea was used, it was only once in that game. And then there's Phantom Ganon as a final boss. I thought it was great because it was like, oh hey, we get to fight Ganon, and then it was just a prank, but still a really good boss fight. So I'm going to kind of sum up the next few dungeons pretty fast because I don't want to be sitting here all day, and Ocarina of Time has quite a few dungeons. So the next one was the Fire Temple. Pretty fun, but also can be annoying with a really cool boss. The Water Temple sucks dick. We don't really need to talk about that one. Let's be real. Spirit Temple, very annoying. Not the best, but also not the worst dungeon with an interesting and kind of iconic boss. The Shadow Temple, super fucking good. Again, probably top 5 best Zelda dungeons in my opinion, with Twin Rova being an awesome boss and introducing a new mechanic that was sadly never used again in the game or in the series, but was still great. And then Ganon's Tower, an awesome final dungeon with subsections referring to each past dungeon in the game, with a pretty good final boss fight. Overall, I cannot deny the fact that Ocarina of Time had way better temples and bosses. But one thing that I do have to give to Majora's Mask is after completing each and every temple, there's a new change to the environment. You actually see your progression and how you are helping people and the environment. Here's an old video referencing exactly what I'm talking about. What I really like about Majora's Mask that you don't really see in a lot of other games is after you do something, you can actually see the result and the change in your actions. So for example, in the Woodfall Temple, the whole swamp is poisoned, but as soon as you beat Adwala, the boss of the temple there, you can see that once he's gone, Skull Kid's curse gets lifted from the swamp and the water is no longer poisonous. Same thing happens in Snow Peak Mountains. It's snowing and the Gorons are freezing, but after you beat Goat or Got, whatever you want to call him, you know, the snow melts and it becomes springtime. So the next thing we're going to compare is the difficulty between the two games. And again, starting off Majora's Mask first. I feel like Majora's Mask is far more difficult than Ocarina of Time. The first time playing through either one of these games is super difficult without a guide. But I think Majora's is just so much more harder, not only because of the time mechanic, but because of the storyline and side quests. They're both just so hard to figure out what to do next. I mean, yeah, sure, you can explore the 4 areas of the map and assume your next location and destination, but the steps you have to take to get there are far more challenging. For example, after you beat the Snow Peak Ruins Temple, then you have to figure out how to get Epona, how to jump over the fence to get to the Great Bay area, and in order to get her, you have to wait until the 3rd day and go to Romani Marriage. Like, who would have guessed to do that? In Ocarina of Time, the game kind of held your hand throughout the first 3 dungeons of the game, and then once you become an adult, you just revisit those same 3 areas, and then a few new areas. However, the dungeons in this game are super difficult, and way more challenging in a puzzle aspect than Majora's Mask. So Majora's Mask is simply going to get the point on here. Next up is side quests. So starting off with Majora's Mask again, the side quests are simply just more important and they add way more to the story. Whenever somebody talks about Majora's Mask, they always bring up the side quests and how good and important they are. And everybody talks about the Cafe and Andrew side quests. And well, there's a really good reason why they do it. It's because it's really that good and that important. Every single NPC in this game has some sort of story, whether they want to stay with their family, run away, or they're simply just in denial. Everyone has some sort of story, and that's just what I love about this game. You don't just run into someone who says, I like shorts, they're nice and easy to wear. Like, bitch, no, get the fuck out of here. Quit wasting my time with that useless dialogue and tell me something more important and something that's more worth my time with interacting with you. And that's just what I get out of Majora's Mask. Is simply put, everybody is important. Honestly, Ocarina of Time's side quests are pretty lackluster and there's no real reason to complete them. You usually only get a heart piece or some rupees. For example, the main big side quest in the game, the Gold Skull Tullas, The reward you get for getting all 99 is just some rupees, and at that point in the game, rupees don't even mean anything to you. So yeah, I definitely gotta give this one to Majora. The next category is music. And the music in both of these games are pretty great, to be honest. But when comparing it to Ocarina of Time, I'm not really sure which one is better, to be honest. They both have amazing soundtracks, and I can't really prefer one over the other. Majora's Mask has amazing tracks like Clock Town, the Astral Observatory, and the Deku Palace are simply just some of my favorites, but Ocarina of Time has some as well. Child Link versus Adult Link, and which one I like better. Simply put, consistently playing as Kid Link throughout Majora's Mask just resonated better with me than in Ocarina of Time. In Ocarina of Time, it was super cool starting out in the beginning of the game as Kid Link. You were just some, I assume, 7-year-old kid roaming around an enchanted forest, and everything just seemed like a magical fantasy world. And it just simply felt like a little kid's imagination. When I was little, I'd go outside and play in the woods and just let my imagination go crazy. And that's what I felt like while playing through this section of Ocarina of Time. I felt like a little kid running around playing in the woods, and it brought back so many good memories and good times in my life being a kid. But then you grow up in Ocarina of Time, and this is where it kind of loses that magical fantasy feel to me. Because you grow up and the fucking world just sucks in real life. I like to escape the real world by playing video games. I don't want to be reminded about how much life sucks as an adult. And that's why I liked Majora's Mask better in a sense. Because I never had to be reminded about how much being an adult sucks. And I was just constantly being reminded of how awesome it was being a kid and how they nailed it in this game. Even so much to the point where some of the adults in the game don't even take you seriously because you're a kid. Story time. Alright, starting off this section with Ocarina of Time. As I just mentioned above, Ocarina of Time starts out super strong and super good. Makes you genuinely feel special right off the bat. You know what your end goal is in this game, and that's to stop Ganon from taking over and to rescue Zelda. Which, it's great, and it's kind of like a Mario game. The plot is nice and simple to follow, and you get a lot of it within the first half of the game. And then the second half of the game comes along, and this is where I personally feel like Ocarina of Time just falls flat on its face. It's almost like Mario Kart. You start off super good, and then someone or something comes along and just ends up fucking you over. Right after the Forest Temple, the story is just simply non-existent. There's no real rhyme or reason to revisit these new locations other than Navi saying, hey, we should check out Death Mountain, or hey, there's a disturbance over at Lake Hylia. And there just seems to be no fucking story until Sheik reveals that she's Zelda at the end of the game. Literally 4 dungeons later, we get a story update. In Majora's Mask, you get your main quest right off of the back as well. You just have to steal back Majora's Mask and return it to the Happy Mask Salesman before the entire fucking world blows up. So, yeah, Majora's Mask's story was way more intense than Ocarina's, and it continues to give you parts and pieces of the story throughout the game. After every temple, there's a new cutscene, which reveals some sort of more of the story, and with each new transformation mask, adding some story elements as well. And then, finally, to come to the main confrontation with Majora's Mask on the top of the clock tower, and holy fucking shit, this is so epic. But more strange than anything. Strange in a good way though. It's like super interesting, and I just want to keep learning more about it. So which one of these feels more like your traditional Zelda game? Well, Majora's Mask isn't really your traditional Zelda game. There is no Zelda, there is no Ganon. I mean, there is Link, but if you're looking to play a traditional Zelda game where you sell the princess, well, this isn't it. While on the other hand, Ocarina of Time is the literal definition of a perfect Zelda game. So which one of these games had a bigger impact on the gaming industry? I simply cannot deny the fact of how much of an impact Ocarina of Time not only had on people, but the gaming industry as well. Mario 64 set the standards of how a 3D platformer should be played, and Ocarina of Time set the standards of how a 3D adventure game should be played. This game was just super revolutionary at the time. The introduction to Z targeting could possibly be one of the most important inventions in video game history, hands down. Thousands of games still use this mechanic, and games will continue to use it until the end of time. Ocarina of Time not only was many people's very first games, but a lot of people's very first Zelda games. This game set the bars for what an action-adventure game should be. Majora's Mask did not come anywhere close to the impact of Ocarina of Time had on the gaming industry, and we would not be where we are today without Ocarina of Time. So simply put, both of these games are just amazing games. So which one of these do I personally think is better? Well, I'm gonna have to go with Majora's Mask, and here's a couple reasons why. Majora's Mask has a lot of changes in its gameplay. I love how this game offers changes to the gameplay. Let's say you're getting bored of playing as Link, and you've been playing as this little kid for hours now, and it's just getting kind of stale for you and boring. I don't know who would ever actually say that about Link, but shh, just go with it, guys. Well, hell, if you're far enough in the game, you can switch it up. You can play as a fast-paced Goron and run around the land of Termina, or you can swim like a dolphin as Zora. Or, I really don't know what the Deku Kid has to offer, but, yeah, I guess you can play as him and, shoot snot bubbles at people. Sure, if you're into that, you weirdo. The 3-day time mechanic and realism in this game. A lot of people hate Majora's Mask because of the 3-day time limit. And when I was younger, I hated it too. I hated in any video game where I had a timed mission or a quest to do. Never mind the entire freaking game that's timed from start to finish. When I first played this game, it turned me off and I didn't want to play the game at all. But after a while, I decided to give it another shot. And some people with anxiety might hate this game. Even if they can turn back time, it's simply just not enough for them. They can feel the constant pressure of an impending doom and failure at every second. But that's where my counter argument comes into play. You can turn back time and do it as many times as you want. You can explore the whole land of Termina and do as many side quests as you want, but you just have to learn how to manage your time properly, which is actually a really cool real-life lesson to learn from this game. The time management really makes this game feel, well, kind of real, to be honest. It makes me learn how to manage my time properly, like in real life. And the same goes with the story. If there was a threat in real life, it would need to be stopped as soon as possible. For example, if the moon really was going to come crashing down on the Earth, you would have to act as fast as possible. There would be no time going fishing or playing with friends. No, you would be focused on the task of saving the world. Ocarina of Time does not have this same effect. You can spend all the time in the world doing whatever you want. You can go horseback riding, fishing, exploring, and whatever else. You can spend all the time in the world just doing nothing. And Ganon kind of just sits in his throne, practicing piano, waiting for you to come and kill him. Like, no, in Majora's Mask, you need to stop Majora, and he does not give a fuck. He will sit and blow up the entire world. He ain't waiting for you. Ain't nobody got time for that. Even the NPCs in this game follow time constraints too. Some of the shops are closed at certain times and you gotta wait for them to open up. Or different NPCs will be working at a shop and it's kind of just like real life. There's not just one person sitting there the whole time 24/7. No, they go home and they live a real life. And lastly, the final things that I really like about Majora's Mask, simply as a game, not even a Zelda game, not even going up against Ocarina of Time, but just as a game in general, I've learned so many life lessons throughout this game. I've learned time management. I've learned how to be myself no matter who I am. One of the smaller themes of this game is being yourself no matter who you really are. Be yourself. Don't hide your true personality. Don't try to change who you are just to please others, because in the end, you are yourself. There's the only thing that matters in the end. No one will ever be with you forever besides yourself. So spend your time on Earth being who you really are. Who cares what others think of you? who cares if you're weird or you're different, because you are who you are, and that will please yourself. It's a lot easier to please yourself than it is to please others. One famous quote from the game actually says, "Nobody cared who I was until I took the mask off." This entitles mainly to Skull Kid, thinking that he will be rejected from his friends and everybody else, but in the end, people actually enjoyed him after he took the mask off and became himself. Link also experiences this well throughout all the transformations. He becomes 3 different species across Termina and realizes how much stress it is to be someone who you really are not, and love and passion that does not go both ways. You know, people loved Maku and Darmani, but Link didn't really feel or give the same love back because he simply wasn't them. He just pretended to be them. He didn't truly love them. He was just, you know, filling in that space that wasn't there. And grief and how people typically deal with it. So yeah, that concludes this video. Let me know which one you guys like better down below in the comments, and remember, this is just my own opinion. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, join the Discord, follow me on Twitter, and check the links down below for more Zelda videos and some merch. With all that being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful day.